What's going on, Fragrance family? It's your man Gator, better known as the novice nose out here in these fragrance streets. A couple of years ago, I ran across a fragrance that really kind of captivated the senses, man. It was a fragrance from Stefan Humbert Lucas called Sandance. I actually had a chance to wear it a few times and I just fell in love with the way that fragrance presented. Did not fall in love with the price point of that fragrance, however. So, it was kind of stuck in the decant form for me from, that point going forward. Well, French Avenue seems like at least, they've kind of made a point to start trying to bring everybody in the fragrance community, no matter what price point they're at, a little bit of that niche styling. And they have done it again with this fragrance. This is French Avenue's Vulcan Sable, which is an interpretation of that Sandance DNA. But how good of an interpretation is it? Well, I've gotten to wear this quite a few times now and got a lot to talk about with this one. So let's go ahead and get to the table and talk about it. So you know the deal. Pull up, pull up, and stay tuned. So, again, fragrance we're talking about today is French Avenue's Vulcan Sable. Now, it's inspired by Stefan Humbert Lucas's Sandance. Sandance is a gorgeous fragrance. I had a chance to wear it a while back on a decant, and for this review, I decided to go ahead and order another decant of Sandance so I can get a couple of wearings in of it to make myself more familiar with the DNA before this fragrance actually even came in, so I could do a really comprehensive review on it. And I actually still have Sandance on this arm right here, or I sprayed it on a little while ago, I should say. And this is Vulcan Sable. This is the inspiration here from French Avenue. You see the presentation, very similar to the presentation, or actually exactly like the presentation on Vulcan Flay. The difference is, of course, the color. That one's a turquoise color, this one's brown. But snake imagery and everything is the same. Kind of the same as the Stefan Humbert Lucas bottles are here in boxes. Now, this one's actually, the French Avenue boxing is the same exactly as it is in Flay, and it's got that textured look here and feel actually to the touch. Now when you open this thing up, you've got the bottle that sits in here all nice and prettily nested. Oh, and by the way, the box is hard hard cardboard here. Now the bottle, of course, itself beautiful, and it takes that brown from the Sandance gradient as well here. So, and the top, of course, stamped with the French Avenue logo there. All right, so let's get into the note breakdown of this thing here. So just for reference, the notes on here are kind of hard to find. the few note breakdowns that I did find on Vulcan Sable are actually all like parroting the note breakdown from Sandance. So top notes are whiskey, coriander, mandarin orange, sesame, and anise. The middle notes are cacao, sandalwood, and cashmeran. And then the base notes are tonka bean, benzoin, styrax, white cedar extract, patchouli, vanilla, and cashmere wood. Again, it's parrots the actual note breakdown from Sandance here. Now, let me get y'all a good little spray. And like I said, I got the Sandance on this arm. I'm gonna go ahead and spray Vulcan Sable on this arm here, just to get a point of reference here. And oh my gosh, in the air, this fragrance is gorgeous, man. So it opens up with this slightly woody, but definitely chocolatey type of vibe. You get some like blended citrus in there. Just a little bit of that citrus is kind of peeking in, but for the most part, you're getting like a woody style of cacao vibe, right? Mostly the cacao, and then in the very background of it, you get a little bit of booziness. There is a little bit of swag in the back of this thing, man. It is definitely presenting, though, in a very similar fashion, I should say, than the original Sandance does. Now, the exception to that, and this is where there's a bit of difference here in the way that they initially present. Sandance comes across as like a hit you in your face type of woodiness, a hit you in your face type of pungency when it comes to the way that the woods hit you, and more specifically the way that the whiskey and booziness hits you. You get a distinct whiskey note in Sandance, and it is strong, it is pungent. It hits you in the nose along with the richness of the wood. It comes across almost like you've got an alcohol soaked barrel, like you pop the top off of a barrel that had been aged, that was whiskey aging, and you put your nose in it. That's how it comes across, with a little bit of the cacao kind of sprinkled into the back of it. It is very pungent. It bites you when you first smell it. The Sable doesn't do that. Sable is more of a smooth entry into the fragrance, so you do get some of the booziness in the background, but for the most part you're getting the cacao, the woods with the little citrus blend, and it comes in smooth. The Sandance don't come in smooth, so there is a bit of a difference the way that they come in. Now, the way that they're mimicking the actual fragrance notes, though, is pretty accurate. They're coming in with the woods, they're coming in with the citrus, the same way that the Sandance does. But it's just a matter of the pungency that the Sandance attacks with. Some people might actually prefer the way that the Sable comes in, because it doesn't have that attack. It comes in a lot smoother here, so you can kind of appreciate the way that the cacao and the sandalwood, and it's got to be sandalwood that's popping in from the top because of the way it's textured. The way that it's blended is beautiful. Now, you are getting a little bit of that booziness, like I said, in the background from that, and it's probably a little bit of whiskey, a little bit of that the coriander kind of playing in there. But what it does is it gives it a nice, subtle little vibe here, and it's very smooth on its entry point. Now, as this thing progresses further into like 10, 15 to 20 minute range, you start getting more of the cacao. And the cacao comes across a little bit different in Sable than it does in the original Sandance. The cacao comes across almost a little dusty. And it could be the sandalwood that's kind of texturing it a little bit more, but it comes across almost like a cocoa powder type of cacao, not necessarily like the smooth note of a buttered cacao, more like the kind of baking cacao that you would use, or cocoa powder, like I said, that you would use. It comes across really beautifully, though, and it adds a little bit of a dimension to this. So like I said, along with the sandalwood, it kind of brings like a powdery style of texture to the fragrance. Now, with that, though, you're also starting to get the first semblance of this kind of like resinousness that starts to come about in this fragrance here, and it starts to kind of creep in, like I said, around that like maybe 20-30 minute mark. You're still getting all your woods, and they become like the prominent feature of this thing here. The cacao and sandalwood blend, to my nose, is really kind of the prominent feature of this fragrance. Even when you lose that little hint of booziness, which the booziness that the Sable has, the slight bit that it has, it kind of fades out like within the first 30 minutes, and you're, like I said, mostly getting that that cacao and sandalwood blend, which is different from the original. The original, that booziness is kicking, man. And for the first hour or so, you're picking that whiskey up, man, and it is not a fleeting note, and it is pungent. And here you start getting into that 30-minute, 45-minute mark. You start getting like the appearance of kind of like a resinous nature, almost an ambery type of nature, but it's kind of soft. It's like there more as a buttery type of vibe, like an underlaying buttery vibe here. And what it does is it just kind of smooths all of the fragrance notes into like this one linear type of blend. And it is gorgeous. In the air, this thing is a beautiful thing to behold with the nose. Now, saying that, and as beautiful as I think this fragrance is in the way that it pops, if you're a fan of Sandance and you've worn that fragrance, and that is a fragrance that you have, had a lot of experience with, you may not appreciate the way that fragrance moves. You may not appreciate the way that Sable moves. And the reason why is because there is a definite differentiation on how it presents going into that first hour, second hour. Like I said, with the Sandance, you're getting still a good bit of pungency. You're getting more of a boozy note in here. You're getting more bite. You're getting a richer fragrance here with this as far as the woods, the way that they present it here. And that all comes to price point, quality of the materials that are being used. These are high quality materials. The Stefan Lucas are higher in their materials. The richer vibes that you get from the Sandance are apparent here, especially like I said in that first 2 hours. But as it kind of gets into like the 2 hour mark here of dry down on Sandance, it kind of the two kind of get onto the same plane as far as how they smell next to each other. Now, while they're on the same plane, again, there are some differences. The Sandance is smoother as it comes into the dry down here, and the Sable actually gets almost dustier. So that cacao and sandalwood blend there, it doesn't get like smoother. It really stays into that dusty nature, and it gets dustier as it progresses. And I think what you're seeing as it goes into that third hour and fourth hour into the dry down, you're seeing a prevalent appearance of like the tonka bean that's kind of pushing in there. So you've already got a little bit of that creamy textured vibe from the sandalwood here, and then the way that the cacao is in here, like a dusty cacao. But then that tonka comes in and just adds a little bit more powderiness to it, so it stays dusty for the rest of the life of the fragrance. As this thing gets into like the 6 hours and everything, you're kind of left with like a sandalwood, like a sweet sandalwood vibe here, and it's mostly just kind of comes across as like vanilla, tonka, and a little bit of woodiness. You do kind of get like little peaks of cacao in there around that time, but for the most part, you're looking at, just a really nice, sweet, powdery blend. Now, I mentioned a lot of time frames, so let's get into the like performance of this fragrance. Performance-wise, now I've worn this, I got a chance to wear it 4 times. I wore it out in the wild 2 times, and I actually got to wear it to work once, and I got to go to an outing with this on. Out of those times that I actually wore it, it lasted throughout the time that I was at those locations. This lasted all day at work. Like I said, I got into that back end of the dry down of the life of it towards the end of the day. So I would say it's going about 8 or 9 hours here as far as the performance, as far as longevity goes. Projection wise though, you're looking somewhere in the range of about arm's length at least. And that's going to be for the first 2 hours of the fragrance here, and then it starts to kind of slowly start to kind of draw in to where once you get into like that hour 5, hour 6, you're looking at mostly like a skin scent that has a decent amount of sillage. Now going to the sillage is great. This is a fragrance that if you walk in a room and you leave the room, it's going to remain in the room that you were in. It has a good decent amount of sillage, man. This is something that I think is going to get a great amount of play in like the fall and the winter here, because it does strike me as a fall and winter style of fragrance. I was glad to be able to wear it a couple times in Atlanta last week, because we've got like a Indian winter that's kind of hit us, so we're getting a lot of cooler temperatures. I say that to say this: it's not really made to be a spring fragrance. This is not like Foy, where it is a warm weather appropriate fragrance. This is made mostly for cool weather. I mean, you might be able to get away with it on like a cool spring evening, but outside of that, I mean, you're really not going to be able to wear this in like the heat of summer. It's going to be a little bit cloying. I think that fall is going to be the best time for this, especially because of the way that this fragrance dances in the air, man. The cacao is beautifully done, and it really does like float in the air, and it gives you like a little like dusty type of scent trail wherever you go in it. So guys, it looks like French Avenue might have another hit on their hands. Now, as I said in the review, it's not the exact closest thing to the original DNA that they're inspired by here. But what it does is it gets you not only in the wheelhouse, but gives you a nice little variation on that original DNA to kind of, in my opinion, make it a little bit more wearable for people who aren't into some of the, more harsh nuances that a lot of niche fragrances bring, man. I really feel like this thing is going to be a hit in the fall. I think in the winter, people are going to start looking for this and reaching for it, man. I think that this is a fragrance that is going to actually be really popular out there. So, man, get your hands on it. It may be something that you like. Get a decan of it. Make sure that you actually are into the Sandance DNA first, though, because the mistake you don't want to make is buying a fragrance like this or buying a fragrance like a Sandance and then realizing at the end of the day, this is just not your speed. Make sure that it's your speed before you go ahead and buy this fragrance. That's all I got for today, man. Guys, make sure, as always, that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, share this video with someone that you know that loves fragrances. And as always, guys, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, make sure you make today the best day ever on purpose. Peace out.